On the crisp night of March 18, 2018, police received 2 phone calls. The first was a frantic call from 33-year-old Kenyatta Baron, also known as Kiki. She was in fear for her life, trying to get away from the father of her 2 children. Dispatchers then heard something they will never forget. A blood-curdling scream. Allahu Akbar was then heard in the background. Dispatchers then received a second call.
Hey, I just been that by the white demon, and that was this that Kiki. Kiki, her name is Kiki, and she tried to kill me.
When first responders arrived on the scene, they found the mother lying face down on the sidewalk near the home. As they took Kenyatta Baron's vitals to confirm her death, they noticed a light, growing brighter coming from the family home. The family's house was on fire, resulting in firefighters forcing entry. They yelled for anyone to exit the residence. It wasn't long before an 8-year-old boy appeared, covered in blood from his injuries. Then his father, Mr. Anil, came out of the building. The sergeant laid the boy in the grass and began to tend to his injuries. Before he lost consciousness, little Ronnie told first responders the person responsible: his father. Police demanded Mr. Anil get on the ground and put his hands over his head. But the blood-soaked Ronnie ignored their warning, taunting them by demanding they shoot him. But the deputies didn't shoot. Instead, they fired tasers. He fell onto his back. Police pushed him with their feet to roll him over and placed him in handcuffs. By this time, the smoke had started billowing from the eaves of the tiny house on Pike Lake Drive, and it had become apparent from a bystander that there was a 9-year-old disabled child unaccounted for. Donald Foster put on a helmet, fire jacket, boots, and his air tank and dragged a hose through the front door. On hands and knees, he felt along a wall as he made his way through the blinding haze. Then, Foster began to feel something slippery on the floor, but the smoke was too thick to see. He called for a ventilation fan, and then looked down to realize he was crawling through blood. He continued to move down the hallway until he reached a door. He opened the door up to a room engulfed in flames. A small girl was then spotted lying under a pile of rubbish. With the time of the essence, he dragged the unresponsive small girl out of the burning building, but as they had a chance to look over her injuries, the reality set in that there was nothing they could do. 9-year-old Ronneveya Anil had cerebral palsy, could not talk, was restricted to a wheelchair, and had autism. She was utterly helpless and at the mercy of her father. Kenyatta's mother had advised her daughter not to let O'Neill into her house. Friends and family wouldn't take him in after he suffered a gunshot wound during a drive-by shooting. But she couldn't find it in her soul to let the father of her children sleep on the streets, even though he had left her a single mother. Kenyatta genuinely had a good heart, and maybe part of her wanted to find a way to make things work for the sake of their family. But Ronnie was troubled and had a history of selling drugs and being in and out of jail. Anil represented himself at trial, presenting a defense marked by accusations of conspiracy theories and outrageous outbursts. When you look at how he presented himself throughout this case, pacing the courtroom, his body language, his gestures, his rage, the mood swings, it painted a picture of what he probably looked like when he committed these murders. Family members told jurors Anil was sexually abused at age 5, at the hands of extended relatives, and that he never knew who his biological father was until adulthood. He worked in a casino and later as a truck driver. As an adult, he gravitated to the Nation of Islam. 5 months before the murders, he was wounded in a random drive-by shooting in Tampa and flatlined 4 times during surgery. Scott Matchless, a forensic psychologist, testified that the shooting and childhood abuse led Anil to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. He was also diagnosed with a delusional disorder. His family spoke of him as a child, talking to God while standing on rooftops and in trees. As an adult, Anil developed grandiose beliefs. He believed God ordained him, making him invincible. He compared himself to Malcolm X and believed that agents of Islam, the CIA, and the FBI targeted him. In jail, he spoke of people trying to kill him, of jail staff trying to poison his food, and of seeing energy waves. Ronnie was ultimately sentenced to 3 life sentences, meaning he will spend the rest of his life in prison, with no chance of parole. As for little Ronnie, he has since legally changed his last name, and his life has changed drastically. While he was recovering in the hospital, Mike Blair frequently visited him. A detective who was at the scene the night it all happened. He was soon after adopted into the family and is safe and loved. Please click the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with my channel. Thanks for watching and take care.